mean you're glad that I didn't say that? Thank you for the £2. They put the weasel in the countdown promo. The fuck there did you? I don't know. The UFC don't like me. You know? They did me out in the ESPN money as well. They just don't like me. Do you think now if Moicano goes on air, you'll watching you? He should do. Thank you for the $10. He fucking should do, man. You really should. See, people don't get it. Like they're saying, dude, you just flamed you. Why are you happy? And I'm like, dude, this is it. This is the thing. You know what I'm realizing, chat? People don't understand not being insanely offended by an insult, you know? Right? Is that an American thing? I think it's also a UK thing as well. People really don't. I find it funny. Like, you guys have called me fat for 5 fucking years. Like, they think I got owned. I know. Like, they really don't understand. Like, I should be sad by this. Why are they so happy, people?
So, for those of you that have just watched this particular stream and have been watching the entire UFC card tonight, MMA Guru got roasted by Renato Moicano. And by the way, MMA Guru is loving this right now for the simple fact that, well, let's just be honest, it's great clout for him. Not only is it great promotion for him, but his channel tonight increased. So big ups to him on that. Now, that's the one school of thought that you guys have to understand. And by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, rewind from the beginning of this particular stream to take a look at what MMA Guru had to say about this whole entire situation. He said something to the effect of, well, is it an American thing that I'm not so offended by this, that I'm loving this whole thing? Okay, let me explain some cultural dynamics here that I think is really important to understand. If you're somebody like Nate Diaz or somebody like, let's say, Brian Ortega or Daniel Rodriguez, or let's say even Randy Brown, who comes from the slums of New York, right? If you come from these types of environments, brother, I got to be honest with you, you find this to be a violation to the highest degree. And there's no way around that. Now, why is that? Because let's just be honest. If you grew up in the hood or if you come from an honor culture, the way that Khabib, Khamzat, and all these other Dagestani and Muslim fighters come from, you're just not going to allow anybody to diss you. But just like with all things, even with the Tupac and the Biggie beef that they had going on, I mean, there were a lot of insults that were being traded, well, particularly in just one side of that equation. But nonetheless, it was lucrative for both sides. And I think this is where MMA Guru is getting at. So it's important to understand the two dynamics of these two schools of thought. You see, it is great for his brand, but then there are guys out there that don't really care about your brand in terms of how people are looking at you. And then there are people out there that do care about how people look at them because they want to preserve their honor. They want to preserve a good reputation, not a reputation where anybody can just come up in here and violate you. I got to tell you, for those of you that have never been to prison, and me included, this isn't something that I'm going to pretend that I know anything about. The bottom line is, in all the rules of prison, if you get violated once, everybody in that whole entire facility is going to look at you like you're food. Okay? So you got to get your scrap on. You got to show people that, you know what, I'm willing to shoot the fade with anybody here and show that I'm not a coward. And not only that, show that I'm not easy pickings. With this, I think it's going to set a precedent for a lot of people to call out MMA Guru, and they already have. Michael Bisping has already called out MMA Guru. Who else has called out MMA Guru? Now Renato Moicano has called them out. Muhammad Mokaev. How about that? Muhammad Mokaev has called out MMA Guru. A lot of people have called out MMA Guru. And not to a very positive degree. Now, there are some that are allies with MMA Guru, such as Dricus Duplessis, and not only that, who else is his ally in the fight game? Obviously, Cameron Simon, but that's an entirely the same team. Who else? Sean Strickland at one point endorsed him. How about Bryce Mitchell? He endorsed him. This is the type of people that MMA Guru attracts. So, again, it's not a surprise that MMA Guru is going to have supporters, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to look at this and say, you know what? You got dissed, homie, and what are you going to do about it? You got violated, and you're not going to do anything about it. But guess what? MMA Guru doesn't come from the same culture that we grew up here in California, where if somebody wants to go and violate you, guess what, homie? You got to run the fade. You got to shoot the one or get into some real gangster stuff and handle it like that. That's not the kind of world that he comes from. MMA Guru likes being insulted. Again, he'll do anything for the likes, the views, and why not? This is what we do it for. Do you think that we do any of this just for nobody to watch, whether it's 2 people or whether it's 2,000 people or whether it's 200,000 people or 2 million people? We do it for views no matter the results of the numbers. That's the name of the game. But you got to ask yourself, what kind of integrity and what kind of person do you want to be when a person who is a respected fighter like Renato Moicano is out there dissing you for the whole world? But again, this is how you view yourself. This is also the reason why MMA Guru doesn't use his real name. You don't know his real name. Now, maybe Cameron Simon and Dricus Duplessis, the guys that he's trained with personally, maybe they know his real name. Maybe they don't. But the bottom line is, this is the reason why MMA Guru is the way that he is and the brand in which he operates in. For one, he operates as semi-anonymous, which gives him sort of a free range to talk the way that he wants, but also sort of, how do I say this? Alleviate himself from certain consequences that come with that. Because one thing that you got to understand about MMA Guru, he's constantly told you guys that, well, I can't go out there and use my real name because under the UK laws and their anti-free speech type of institution that they have going on in the UK, he can just easily go out and say, well, I play a character, so therefore there's no harm or foul with anything that I do, and it'll be just that. So this is the type of alleviation that MMA Guru is operating under. And quite frankly, it's smart. It's what you have to do if you live in a country like that. Hey, you know what? We live in the United States. We have a little bit more freedom in what we can say as opposed to, let's say, England and especially in Canada. That's just the reality of the situation. Now, with MMA Guru, he lives in a different jurisdiction. So he has to play these games to where he can deny with plausibility of any actions of, let's say, incitement or maybe even hate speech laws that the UK is very famous for, right? You say one wrong thing, guess what? The UK government is going to crack down on you. So that's the reality of MMA Guru's situation and why he is the way that he is and why he talks the way that he does and why he doesn't really perceive this as the biggest disrespect. Now, if you want to know my personal opinion and how I would go about this, I'm going to tell you, for me, let's say I'm MMA Guru in this particular situation. And by the way, we all want to be MMA Guru if you are in the MMA content creator space. Why would you not? He's basically the Jay-Z of this whole entire genre. So you got to give him that respect. But if I was in that situation and I got this type of attention against Moicano, I'm sorry, but I would have to go and violate Moicano in some kind of way. I would have to go violate him in his reputation. I would have to go violate him in terms of maybe even defamation. I don't know if I would go that far. But if it was one of those situations where it was so bad that it was detrimental to my brand, then I will proceed in that type of matter to legally pursue civil lawsuit cases against him. But this is the opposite for MMA Guru. It's actually gaining him a lot of followers. By the way, in the entire stream that he was live streaming this fight night, by the way, just a regular fight night, not a big pay-per-view card. This is one of those types of cards where you don't really expect a lot of big numbers for people to come to your particular channel. So it's just another fight night. It's just for you to throw another guess content in your catalog. But that's not the case. He got something a whole lot bigger. And again, this is what's great about these fight nights. This is what's great about the UFC, is that you have such a high level of unpredictability that it almost compels you to want to watch every week so that you don't miss situations like this. And this is what we got out of MMA Guru. So again, those are some of the things that I would do. I would violate Moicano. I would also try to pursue legal lawsuits if it was, again, very hurtful to my brand, which obviously it isn't. It isn't for MMA Guru. But I would perpetuate this beef even further to try and garner more attention, to try and garner more views, because this is just what you do. This is what you do in the MMA space. This is what you do in the rap world. I'm going to tell you who I've been watching a whole lot lately in the rap industry that I think you guys should take a look at, which I think is a great crossover for MMA fans. It's this guy named Whack 100. So for those of you that don't know Whack 100, he used to roll with Suge Knight in the tail end of Death Row Records' run in the 90s all the way to the 2000s and the mid 2000s and so on and so forth. So he became a rap mogul. Long story short, now he works with The Game, works with Blueface and all these other big rap acts. So why is this important to understand? This guy brews conflict every day in the rap game. Okay? He has a live stream app called Clubhouse where he gets on there with a whole group of people. He goes out and disses rappers. He goes out and not only that, exposes rappers for, let's say, snitching, which, as you know, is a big violation in the world of gangster rap. And not only that, in the world of gangs and the underworld, period. It's just not something that you do. So he goes and exposes these guys, ruins their career, ruins their reputation, and not only that, starts beef with random Mexican gang members in his city of Los Angeles. And not only that, creates this big fiasco to increase his brand. And not only that, increase the notoriety of the people that he manages, such as The Game, the rapper The Game, Jay Sean Taylor, and Blueface, who, by the way, was also part of the BKFC celebrity boxing match, to which later Blueface ended up becoming a pro boxer himself, doing some fights in England. I urge you guys to check that out. But nonetheless, that's who Whack 100 is in the rap world. He is basically the MMA guru. He likes to stir things up. Obviously, probably not as MMA guru is not as powerful as he is, but either way, this is the guy that stirs up a lot of controversy in the rap world. But again, you know what they say. All publicity is good publicity, whether good or bad. So we're going to go on with more on this particular story with MMA Guru. Let's just go on and take a look at the results of the fights tonight. But we're going to continue on with this story as I talk about MMA Guru, but also talk about the fights tonight. How about Conor Benn? Let's start with that. How about Conor Benn going to a decision against Dobson? Now, a lot of people are looking at that and saying, well, you know what, his knockout power disappeared or this and that. But at the same time, you also got to understand, you're not going to finish them all. And maybe he came into this fight knowing that perhaps he was going to get some good rounds in and really didn't have any expectations of finishing the guy. So that's that. Now, how about the fight tonight with Joshua Buatsi and Dan Aziz? Obviously, a very easy win for Joshua Buatsi. He made a very good account of himself. That was a good fight. If you guys had missed that, I urge you guys to check that out. So 2 fights that you guys did not see in the MMA world today, in the boxing world. There's Conor Benn versus Dobson. Check that out. That fight went to a decision. Also, check out Dan Aziz versus Joshua Buatsi. That was also a good fight. But to the UFC tonight, and also we're going to talk more about MMA Guru being dissed by Renato Moicano. And not only that, I'm going to go over the results of the fight tonight. So how about this? Roman Dolidze gets defeated by Nasruddin Imavov. Okay, there were no takedowns in this fight. Basically, an entire fight of striking, 62% over a 31% from Roman Dolidze. Nasruddin just looked so much of a threat to this particular fight, to the point where he was just really overwhelming for Roman Dolidze. But not only that, how about the drama that was part of this fight? How about the fact that Nasruddin got in the face of Chris Curtis, the training partner and the good friend of the middleweight champion, which is Sean Strickland. Now, is there a good fight somewhere down the line for Chris Curtis and Nasruddin Imavov? Well, I tell you what, Nasruddin Imavov seems to be now in the top 10 of the 185 division. And if Chris Curtis, with the name value that he has going on, let's say he gets one more win, he could get up there and fight Nasruddin. Or guess what? They could just go in at a grudge match and fight amongst themselves later on. And the fight is already selling itself just based on that controversy. Now, how about Renato Moicano taking on Drew Dober? Drew Dober had no answer in this particular fight. I mean, the grappling prowess of Renato Moicano was just prevalent in this fight, and he used that to win this fight. But not only that, he still had the energy and the time and the wits about him to go and guess what? Diss MMA Guru, which, by the way, we're going to continue talking about all throughout the night, as I did in the beginning of the show. If you guys want to check it out from the beginning, rewind back and watch till the end. But yeah, we're going to continue on with that as let me just go through with this fight. How about that knockout with Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikov? Now, that right there was a surprising shot. It just came out of nowhere. He hit him with a jab and then sidestepped and hit him with a cross and got the knockout. And it was a great win for Randy Brown. What's next for him? Maybe somewhere down the line, a fight with Neil Magny. That seems to be the most plausible thing that you could possibly do for him. But yeah, great win for Randy Brown. Obviously coming off of a loss, now getting a win after that. Great way to bounce back. Natalia Silva basically grappled her way into victory into this whole entire fight, in grappling her in a way where basically she had just grinded her up against the fence, had less of the total strikes percentage, had less of the significant strikes, but I think her cage control is what ultimately won her this fight. Also, the knockout by Charles Radich over Gilbert Urbina, it just came out of nowhere, that knockout. So great win on his part. Obviously, 64% striking percentage, 63 in a significant striking aspect. No takedowns, just an overall striking affair. And in the prelims, in the beginning of the night, a few of these fights I did not see because I was watching the Joshua Buatsi and the fight with Conor Benn at the same time, so I wasn't able to catch this early in the night. You had a decision win from Jamal Pogues with a decision. I got to go rewatch that and check that out. Markel Medros, another decision, so 2 decisions. And then later on that night, Luana Carolina finishes off Julia Storolenko in the 3rd round with literally just 8 seconds left. And then after that, you had the win versus Li Jiang versus Blake Byler, decision win. Lee had most of the takedowns in that fight, 66% takedowns, 2 out of 3, 62% in his total strikes, significant strikes, 59%, which is way more active than, let's say, Blake tonight. And, well, he came off with the victory just with the grappling and the striking alone. So, again, people, just like going back to the Drickus fight, it wins fights. Wrestling wins fights. What do we have here with D. Brown? D. Brown says, I think Nasruddin fought Curtis in France and won. rematch could be in order. Okay, so they did fight, and it could be, again, a great built-in storyline right there. By the way, thank you for your comments and your interaction. If you guys have any comments, don't be shy. Drop it down below and let me know so you can be part of the show as well. So moving on with that fight, how about the guy that The Rock basically sponsored? How about Thurmba Gorimbo? Okay, how about the fact that he called out all the welterweights in this? Now, again, it's always really, really premature for anybody to call out the champion or the guys at the top. But when you got a performance like this, guess what? It moves you way up the chain more than, let's say, the other prospects. So great on him to make that call out. And obviously, there's a great built in storyline with The Rock sponsoring this guy. So why not? And then look at the statistics here. Look at the statistics. Do you guys see that? He literally made the guy do absolutely nothing and knocked him out, and that was it, right? So you got to think, what does The Rock see in this guy? Maybe something very special. Now about the decision win with Charles Johnson. 2 out of 6 takedowns versus 2 out of 7 takedowns from Azat. But he had the higher striking percentage, which is way more active on the feet. Had a lot of submission attempts, 3 submission attempts versus 1. Won that fight out of activity. Now, how about Molly McCann with a submission win over Diana Belbigida from Romania? Okay, so she was very active on the striking. As always, Molly's just really active with her striking, just always going after it, whether it's from a submission or whether it's swinging at the fence. It was a great win for her and obviously a great bounce back. But that is the entire fight for tonight's fight card. So now let's go back to the main event, the real main event of tonight, which is MMA Guru and Renato Moicano going at it. Now, in the beginning of the stream, if you guys are just joining us, let me tell you what I said earlier. What I said earlier was that there's 2 schools of thought about how you go about this, right? Now, obviously, for you guys that don't know, living out here in California in a gang-ridden culture, right? You are not allowed to be violated if you want to be seen as a tough guy in any kind of capacity. Now, if you're in the world of MMA fighting, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a blogger, or whether you're an analyst, or whether you're a fighter, a coach, or a manager, everybody in this particular game is hyper aggressive. That's just the way it is. You know who I trained with out here in Sacramento? Was this guy named Eric Trilogy, who, by the way, for those of you that don't know, is the current nutritionist of Logan Paul, Jake Paul, KSI, and Conor McGregor. Okay? This guy, I got to tell you, by the way, shout out to him. He came out with a new book recently. I urge you guys to check that out. Eric Trilogy's new book. I believe it's called Fight Food or Food Fight. But this guy, I got to tell you, he is the embodiment of the MMA business, because obviously he's not a fighter, right? But just like most of the fighters and just like most of the managers in this game, he's hyper aggressive. Also, let's just be honest. What's this comment right here? Pretty sure Curtis fought Imavov in Canada. Okay. So MMA Guru got violated tonight, but he doesn't view it that way. And why should he view it that way? Because guess what? This gives him a whole lot of clout. But you got to ask yourself, as a man of respect and as somebody that comes from an honor culture, whether you come from a gang-ridden neighborhood or you come from a conservative Islamic country like Khabib and Islam and Khamzat and all those guys that just don't take smack from anybody, this is a violation that you have to do something about. Now, of course, there are other people out there that have this school of thought that say something to the effect of, well, why would you go out and just jump at anybody that goes out and insults you? Well, the question is, why would you not? Because guess what? You're in a tough guy business, so you do tough guy things. And I'm sorry if you guys don't agree with that, if you just say, well, you're just a YouTuber, or MMA Guru is just a YouTuber, or he's just a blogger, he's not a fighter, or this and that. What is this? Wait, what are we talking about? Sounds like you're frustrated about something. Okay, so Noel, I got to tell you, earlier of the night, MMA Guru, if you don't know who he is, he's an MMA blogger. He got called out by Renato Moicano. If you weren't able to catch Renato Moicano's post-fight press conference. So what I'm frustrated about, am I frustrated about it? No, I'm not frustrated about it. I'm just explaining to you the story and the different two schools of thought and how you can respond to this. If let's say you are somebody in the MMA, content creator space, you can either respond to it in the way that he did, which is that he takes it as, okay, I'm not insulted by it. I'm actually taking it as a compliment because Renato and Moicano called me out, shouted out my channel, and not only that, increased my viewership just as much as he went and increased the viewership of Renato Moicano. But I'm sorry to tell you, as a Muslim man, I don't think I would. I mean, of course, you can't just jump on the screen. You did something to me or this. Of course, you're not going to do that. But make no mistake, if Renato Moicano called me a pig in national television in front of the whole world, I would do some sort of get back in any kind of way. You know what I mean? MMA Guru doesn't see it that way. He just sees it as like, well, this is great clout for me, and this is great notoriety, or this is great for my brand. And it is. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that there is no right or wrong answer to this. And you know what? I got to tell you, the beauty about mixed martial arts is that there is no right or wrong when it comes to the techniques. For example, you go to a conventional boxing gym. What happens? They tell you how to punch, right? There's a certain technical way of punching, right? This is a straight punch, straight jab, right? You extend your arm, you make your fist land in this particular direction. But when you fight in Jeet Kune Do or MMA, by the way, you can punch like this instead of like this. There's no right way or wrong way, or you can punch in different directions. Shout outs to this brother right here. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that in MMA, there is no right way or wrong way of doing things, just like promotion. There is no right way or wrong way of promoting in MMA. In other words, there's guys out there. Okay, I'll give you a little story from my amateur kickboxing days, right? I had a buddy that I trained with. This is when I was training at Muay Thai Lao out here in Sacramento. For those of you that don't know Muay Thai Lao, it was owned by Andy K, who was Uriah Faber's former Muay Thai coach. If you look at some old Uriah Faber tapes back in the WEC days, you'll notice there's this Lao Thai dude that's with him, Andy K. That's the dude that I first trained Muay Thai out of. And yeah, so I trained out of his gym. There was one training partner I had, right? I'm not going to mention his name because he's in law enforcement now, and he probably doesn't want his names mentioned. But I'll tell you this. I'll tell you what his father told me. His father told me, he said, hey, listen, I don't understand why my son doesn't go out and trash talk like you. Why is he not active like you? Why doesn't he go out and become as boisterous as you, or loud and outspoken like you? So this is what I explained to the father of my training partner. I said to him, there's no right way or wrong way in the fight game, okay? Because understand this, in the fight game, there are guys that are going to be loud and boisterous and overly confident and extroverted, and then there are guys that are going to be a little bit tamed, a little bit introverted, guys that don't like to talk, guys that just allow their actions to do the talking. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not right or wrong. But I will say, if you are loud and you know how to talk, you know how to garner attention, you know how to garner an audience, you're doing something right in the MMA world or in the fight world or whatever combat sports you compete in. But if you want to do it in another way where you just want to, let's say, do it in a very quiet way, do it in a very sportsman-like way, in a very gentleman way, the way that George St. Pierre has done it, the way that Sugar Ray Sugar Ray Leonard has done it. That's okay too. There's no right way or wrong way. What did this brother say right here? Yeah, probably cultural difference. Sounds like a bit of banter. Correct. Doesn't sound like they're beefing. Renato said in his live stream in the ambulance, he was just messing around. 5 a.m. in Sweden. Good night. Shout outs to Sweden and everybody around the world that's tapping in. Thank you for your support and your engagement. And I hope you drink some nice coffee now that it's 5 a.m. in the morning in Sweden. Shout outs to Sweden and everyone around the world that's watching and tapping in with us. So, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just plain old banter. Now, that brings a whole different segment to this whole particular topic. Because I got to say that, is this fake? Is this one of those situations where they sort of stage the entire thing to garner clout and attention? And if it is, well, guess what? It worked. We're all here. You all, maybe 7 or 10 people that are watching this right now are currently paying attention to this channel, and a whole bunch of other channels out there that are in the MMA space are probably going to garner a few numbers out of this as well. So, especially MMA Guru and Renato Moicano, who, by the way, is building up his YouTube channel as well in this modern space of fighters having to, let's say, care about their social media image and their engagements that they are currently holding for everyone to see their brand or in some kind of way. But yeah, so it is a bit of a banter, right? But now the question is it real, or is it just, I guess, for all the clout? So that's sort of the question that we have to ask ourselves here, right? So, more on MMA Guru and Renato Moicano in a second, but how about these other news with Tyson Fury pulling out of the Alexander Usyk fight, and also the Saudi prince saying something to the effect of he's going to charge $10 million the next time anybody pulls out. Now, that's quite a hefty fine right there, $10 million. Wow. But at the same time, you look at the type of money that these guys make from the Saudis. I mean, it's just no more than just them deducting whatever it is that they have going on. What do we have here? You look like you got a dope magic that you look like you got a dope magic the gathering deck, bro. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the engagement. Let me know where you guys are from. We just had a brother tap in from Sweden. Obviously, there's a lot of different people around the world that watch this channel. Hey, MMA and fighting in and of itself is a sport that everybody understands, right? No matter what culture or creed or religion you come from, fighting is our DNA, and we all get it, just like the famous words of the president of the UFC, Dana White. So, the man that made all of this happen. So, back to Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. I'm pretty bummed about not seeing these guys fight. At the same time, guess what? I was expecting a doubleheader that day because obviously there's a fight going on in California for the UFC Anaheim card for UFC 298. But it's all good because guess what? We can just concentrate on that particular card. We don't have to worry about jumping back from the UFC and then into boxing, or from boxing in the morning, because obviously it's taking place in Saudi and the UFC card is taking place in Los Angeles, California. So yeah, you can watch both, just like most of these double headers that they've been having over the years. At the same time, it's still a bummer because let me tell you why. This creates a whole lot more confusion in the heavyweight division of boxing, just as much as it's creating a confusion in the world of MMA. See, John Jones, we don't know when he's going to come back. And how about this? They're also talking about possibly doing Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall for UFC 300 for the interim heavyweight championship, which is crazy because you got to think to yourself, he's supposed to be the undisputed champion, John Jones, right? But is he the lineal champion? No, it's Francis Ngannou. He's out with an injury. But the main card that you're going to, I'm sorry, the main event that you're going to have for UFC 300 is an interim heavyweight championship fight. And then in the boxing side, there's so much confusion. People are talking about how these guys should be stripped. I got to tell you, there's a part of me that believes that, right? What do we have here from no? Oh, by the way, before I go, it's rare to get to directly speak to MMA fans. Who you got in the upcoming events? Tapora, Volk, Cheeto, Malley, Gaethje, Holloway. I hope Volk goes out safe. Good guy. Okay, so let me answer this one by one, okay? Ilya Tapora and Volk. I believe I made a prediction video for this. I urge you to check it out, but I'll tell you right here. I'm going to go with Tapora on that one. Just based on the fact that he's undefeated, he's got the momentum on his side. Volk is coming off of a knockout loss, coming back very early. Okay, very detrimental to that. And I just think that it's Tapora's time, which, by the way, is why 2024 is going to be one of the greatest years for mixed martial arts, and in particular in the UFC, but in particular the MMA overall, because of the PFL and Bellator cards that they have going on. I mean, that February card they have is quite good, but also the surprising outcomes that we're going to witness, such as this: Ilya Tapora becoming an undisputed champion as an undefeated 145 world champion, right? That's going to be great for the UFC to market. And then he's from Spain. So I got Tapora on that one. Cheeto versus Malley. I got O'Malley, based on the fact that O'Malley was beating up Cheeto in their first fight, only for O'Malley to come back even better and have that champion's momentum. Again, everything is about momentum. If you want to pick, or if you want to have good picks, and again, MMA is a very confusing sport. It's a very unpredictable sport. But the one thing that you have to rely on is momentum. Momentum means something in this game, whether the guy is on a winning streak or whether the guy is on a losing streak or winning streak. Those two things are very indicative of how they're going to perform in their next upcoming matchup, or how their results are going to pan out. So O'Malley on that one, just based on the fact that he was beating him up in the first fight, only for him to injure his leg, just based on those calf kicks. I think he's going to make adjustments in order to check those leg kicks, or use a certain level of distance and range to get away from those kicks. I got O'Malley on that. How about Gaethje versus Holloway? I'm going to go with Justin Gaethje. He's too technical. He's too big. And Holloway has proved that he can't go out there and compete with the likes of Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier. I think he may give a good account of himself, but I think this is going to be one of those situations where, in all honesty, it's going to really damage him. But it's hard to knock out Max Holloway, so it's going to be even worse. It's going to give him even more brain damage. I got Justin Gaethje by decision on that one. And you said, I hope Volk goes out safe. Good guy. You should be very concerned if you are a Volkanovski fan, in my true and humble opinion. So shout outs to Noel Eriksson from Sweden for that. By the way, what city in Sweden are you from? Just out of curiosity. I'm obviously out here in California, West Side, California, in Sacramento. I sometimes am down in LA. I've done some videos where I've shot down in LA. Right in my Santa Monica hotel. I urge you guys to check that out. During the UFC 290 time period where I covered those fights, I was down there in LA. Obviously, that fight was in Vegas, but I was in LA at that time. So, yeah, you know, I'm all over California, so to say. So Sacramento, LA, and the Bay, and everything in between. Let me know what part of Sweden you're from, and everybody else around the world. Let me know what part of the world you're from, country, city, and everything else in between. So what else was going on tonight, right? Obviously, there's another fight night next week. The next fight night is going to be, is that correct? Jack Hermanson? How about this? Jack Hermanson versus Joe Pfeiffer. Now, Joe Pfeiffer, he's an upcoming prospect in the middleweight division. Again, I've told you guys that the middleweight division is becoming a very stacked division, and a lot of people are sleeping on it. Uh, by the way, I made a video a couple of months ago. I urge you guys to check that out. It's called, what is it called? How 185 is the stacked division right now. And this is when Izzy was champion, by the way. I'm probably going to play that video in a little bit just to kind of give you guys a context of what we're talking about. But Noel Erickson here says, I live 50 miles north of Gutenberg, between Gutenberg and Karlstad. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So for those that are in the United States, you guys know what Sweden is well known for, other than the fact that Kamzat comes out of there. Although, how about this? How about an interesting story? I heard that Kamzat, I believe, was arrested in Sweden because he did not represent the Swedish flag in one of his fights. And he had to, because of the fact that Sweden had provided him some sort of. Sorry about that. I believe Sweden had provided Kamzat Chimaev with some financial support. And yeah, he didn't obviously wear the Swedish flag. He wore the UAE flag. So I think this is what prompted him to want to move to UAE. But nonetheless, yeah, I urge you guys to check that out. So I may come back. I may not come back, but I'm going to play you guys a video that I made a couple of months ago, obviously, where I talk about how the middleweight division is one of the most stacked divisions right now in the UFC. Let me see if I can pull that up right now. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Stream this right here. Here we go. We'll just do it with one take from here. So the best way to really understand the 185 division right now is exactly as how it follows. You have Izzy on top, and then you have a bunch of other guys on the bottom that he's either fought or have fought themselves within the range of the top 8. You have Sean Strickland, who recently just won last night against an unranked opponent. And why is that? Because there's just not a lot of guys that were willing to take that fight against him. Now with Sean, this guy is willing to take fights at any given minutes of notice and will even go out and fight Alex Behera again, which, by the way, he's actually sparred with him prior to this matchup he had with Abus during this weekend's fight. Now, the way that Sean Strickland is built, it's like as if he's going to continue fighting with very minimal damage, which really surprised me because he used a lot of great Philly shell defensive boxing techniques and really fought in that similar type of pace in a boxing setting. And what do I mean by that? If you guys ever watched professional boxing in comparison to the boxing that you would see used in MMA with slick jabs and the things that Max Holloway does or the things that Conor McGregor has done with the likes of, let's say, Eddie Alvarez, the difference with that in boxing is the amount of patience that you have to endure. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're a top-level world championship boxer, you have to be jab heavy. And when you're jab heavy, you're able to control the range, you're able to control the shots, you're able to control the pace of the fight. And what we have going on with Sean Strickland is exactly something similar to that in a boxing pace. Whereas, let's say, the likes of Khabib Nurmagomedov or the likes of Kamzat or even the likes of Robert Whittaker or GSP may fight a little bit more of an explosive side or use a lot of powerful movements to try to negotiate their tactics against their opponents. Like, for example, GSP would try to play the opposite game, meaning that if you are a world level wrestler with the likes of Josh Koscheck, what was he going to do with you? He was going to jab your face in. That's exactly what he did in that fight. And then when you have the likes of, let's say, a striking centric fighter such as Dan Hardy, what was he going to do with him? Well, he took him down to the ground over and over again and had several submission attempts in which he was trying to rip his arm off, and to the credit of Dan Hardy, was able to get out of it. So that type of pace is relentless. It's also very taxing, but it's also the reason why a lot of guys will cut their careers short. And rightfully so. This is what you see with Khabib Nurmagomedov. He knew that the type of style he had going on was very fast pace heavy, in which that it was only going to be conducive for a younger fighter that can recover a lot better than, let's say, somebody who's of a latter stage of their career, or somebody a little bit older, or somebody that had miles in their clock, or all of the above. Now, not to get off track with the 185 division of the UFC, but I wanted you guys to understand the pace that Sean Strickland sets in a fight. What it is it's a very monotone pace, meaning that he keeps a certain pace in which it is no different than what he does in a sparring match. And you've heard McGregor say this over and over again, where he mentioned something to the effect of, well, I treat it like a sparring match, mate. I go out there and I just feel the moment, and I just this and that. That's basically the way that he describes it, is a sparring match. When he went into the Donald Cerrone fight in 2020, how did he describe it? A sparring match. He described it as nonchalantly and just going in, doing whatever it is that he does on a daily basis. Now, the way that Sean Strickland fights, that's exactly how he went about this fight. Another sparring session. You want to know why? Because the way that he spars and the way that he trains is exactly just that. I don't think Sean Strickland does any circuit training or weight training or anything like that. And by the way, if you guys would like to check out what MMA conditioning, strength workouts and circuits are going to be like, I suggest you take a look at the next video I'm about to post, something I recorded off of the gym, just to give you guys an idea of what it is and what it means to train in a functional manner. Very similar to what Kyle Dake, the four-time weight NCAA champion, does in his workouts. He does what you call functional patterns. And what it is that you do workouts that are specifically to the effect of the sport that you are doing. So in other words, if you're doing, let's say, bench presses or military press or anything to that effect, you got to ask yourself, where and when are you going to use these movements, and how are they going to improve your explosiveness? How are they going to make you a lot stronger? How are they going to make you a lot more effective in the techniques that you're trying to employ? So
let me show you how we do stuff around here.
Actually, my department uses Monday.com, so I'm good.
Work management tool.
These are the type of workouts that address that. Now, with Sean Strickland, he does absolutely none of that. What he does is he goes into a gym, spars with guys, and barely even hits the bag. Maybe he hits the bag a few times, but most of his workouts are nothing but sparring. And how many rounds of that does that consist of? Well, only he knows and only his training partners know. But you also know that he trains in Extreme Couture, which means that they're also a team that can kind of hone him back to having, let's say, more of a mature and a professional training method or a training schedule to what he has to do. But nonetheless, Sean does what he does, and he becomes great at it. And it's the reason why he has great timing in his shots. And during his fights, you see that going on. It's like, he mentions his fist being a pitter-patter. He says that he hits like a girl. Very self-aware in the way that he describes himself, right? Because he's kind of right in a way, look, if you don't train in the kind of functional matter that increases your speed, increases your punching power, increases your explosivity in terms of how you're going to react when punches are thrown at you, or how you're going to react on the offense, or how to switch up from offense to defense, you're not going to be able to translate that in a fight. A bench press, the amount of pull-ups that you can do, the amount of chin-ups that you can do, or even the amount of squats that you can do can really mean squat diddly in the actual match in and of itself, when you're not training with full functional patterns of the movement that you're going to have to get used to in a fight or in a combat setting. So with Sean Strickland, he does something similar to that in terms of actually going in there in a live fire. That's literally how he trains and how you describe it. It's an absolute live fire. He just goes in there and goes for broke with whoever, and then that's what he does. That's how he fights, but it's effective. At the same time, you also got to wonder the longevity of the actual method itself. So what we have with Israel Adesanya, he is the guy that is ruling the 185 division right now. So is that a problem? In a way, yes, because he's already beaten the likes of the number one guy right now, which is Alex Pereira. What is he going to do? This guy's going to move up 205 or maybe even heavyweight. He's currently walking around at 230 right now, and for him to make 185 would be an absolute drag and would be very hard on his body once again in the long term of his career. Now with Robert Whittaker, he's at number 2 right now. He's about to fight Dricus du Plessis in this coming weekend, which is going to determine if Dricus du Plessis is going to earn the title shot against Izzy. Because guess what? Him and Izzy got a great storyline going on. You got a white South African guy who's moving up the ranks, the type of region in South Africa in which the UFC is trying to market, another global stage. And then on top of the fact that Israel Adesanya is already a global brand and a global product in and of himself in the current time of being a world champion and being an icon of the sport in the current moment of time. And it's going to be a big fight. The implications and the storyline has a great feel to it, will be promoted heavily in different regions of the world, including the regions that already have MMA, such as America, Brazil, and Japan, and Europe, and et cetera, et cetera. And with Paulo Costa, once again, he's still in the mix, number 5. He already fought Izzy. Marvin Vettori, he already fought him. Jack Hermanson, he's lost a few times, had a few of his chances moving up the ranks, but just couldn't crack the top 5. Brendan Allen is on his way up. Kelvin Gastelum has been in there with Izzy, but is still up there in his latter stage of his career right now. Nazardine Imavov fell down a few times, took a loss, still in the top 15. And then there's Andre Muniz and Chris Curtis in the mix of the last top of the 15. So that's literally what's going on in the state of the 185 division right now. Once again, they're going to have to create a lot of creative matches. At the same time, a lot of these guys that have the big names like Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis, the 2 guys that would be the absolute great white hope opponent for Izzy, they got to do their part, and that is win. Sean did his part yesterday, took that W. Now Dricus du Plessis has a hard task ahead of him in UFC 290. Will he be able to do it? You got to find out this weekend. That's why they call it the theater of the unknown. Enjoy the fights.
Hi, I'm Zoe Gong. As a traditional Chinese medicine chef and food.
All right. So if you're just tapping in right now, that was a video that I made about 7 months ago where I talk about how get this in. Okay, sorry about that. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Yeah, so 7 months ago, I made that video where I talk about how the 185 division was stacked at that current moment of time. Now, I got to tell you, the response that I got out of that particular notion or that particular take, a lot of people didn't really seem to like it, right? Let me show you one comment regarding that, right? What does he say here? This gentleman says to the effect of, let me zoom in for you guys just so you can see this comment. Hold on. Can I zoom this in? Okay. It says 185 sucks. It sucked for a while. Also weird. Strickland hate these for every video because a dust up you had with him 4 years ago. Super weird. Okay, so what he's talking about is basically the situation that I got into it with Sean Strickland online, and obviously he went on to become a champion. And not only that, he became one of the most controversial figures in MMA history. How about that little situation you had going on in Canada? What did Nolan here say? I agree with the 185 statement. So many contenders now. Kamzat, Aliaskarov, Pfeiffer, Berhalo, Hernandez. Okay, Anthony Hernandez. How about that? By the way, I was in the same card with Anthony Hernandez back in the Reno Combat days back in 2012. So I got a little story on that as well at some point. Michael Piera, Kopilov, Shara the Bullet. So happy since 185 been dry for years. Yeah, that's right. It's been a division where either one guy was very dominant at it, i.e. Anderson Silva, and eventually it just got to this stage where it was either going to be just Izzy or Anderson Silva. And then after that, it was a pass around. When the belt started getting passed around from Izzy to Alex Pereira and then back to Izzy again, and then back to Sean Strickland, that's when this whole entire division really started to get as interesting as the way that it should. So, guys, that is all that I have for this particular segment, for this reaction to the post-fight of tonight, and also the big news of Renato Moicano dissing MMA Guru and getting some clout out of it, and the two different schools of thought that people have with honor culture, and also having, I guess, this sense of, oh, well, nothing offends me or this and that. I want to address that with a lot of people. I think this is really important to understand, right? Now, look, I believe in self-preservation. I believe in, how do I say this? I believe in being able to have self-respect for yourself, right? But at the same time, I also do believe in being strong, not allowing the world to break you down or destroy you. However, there is this notion that people have where, let's say if somebody like Ian Gary decided to turn his comments off on his YouTube channel. By the way, this is very bad if you want to create engagements, okay? You got to have a certain level of engagements in order for the views to, I guess, jump up in the algorithm. Okay. But this idea that you're supposed to just read every comment that is abusive, I think is false and, quite frankly, very uneducated. It is not natural for a person to just take in all these negative ideas from around the world. You got to know how to be able to protect yourself. And this is what I mean by being an advocate for self-preservation. You don't have to go out there and take the abuse from other people. This notion of like, well, I'm a strong person because I allow other people to call me names or send me all these types of crazy pics that I shouldn't be watching or this and that. Noel here says, before you go, speaking of GSP in 185, do you think he would have had a chance against the contenders when he beat Bisping, such as Jacare Romero, Rockhold Whitaker? I honestly don't. Still the GOAT, though. I agree with you. I don't think that he would have. What he did with what GSP did with Michael Bisping was easy pickings, right? By the way, I'm an 80s, 90s kid. I'm 38 years old, right? So that means that I grew up in the 90s. Who remembers, if you grew up around that time or if you know about 90s movies, do you remember the movie Three Ninjas? So Three Ninjas was about these suburban kids whose dad was a federal agent and whose grandfather, by the way, was a Japanese ninjutsu instructor. So every summer they would go back to their uncle's little compound or a remote place out in the forest and train to become ninjas. One of the advice that he told the three ninjas was never go into a battle that you know you cannot win. And by the way, how appropriate. GSP comes from the Japanese martial arts school of thought, right? Because he comes from a Kyokushin karate background before he got into wrestling, before he got into MMA, and before he rounded up his game into what we know George St. Pierre to be. He was a traditional martial artist at first. And one of the things that he learned from Japanese martial arts is what? Never enter a fight that you know that you can't win. Michael Bisping had a bad eye. He knew that he was the easiest champion to pick. Not only that, he was a champion one weight class above his original weight class that he was a champion in for a long time. And he knew that there were chances that he could finish this guy based on certain vulnerabilities that he has. So yes, this comment that you said right here, I don't think that he would have beaten Jacare in his prime. Romero at his prime, nope, too big. Rockhold, yup, too big, too long. Whitaker, too well-rounded and too big, even for the standards of GSP. I agree. I don't think he would have been able to take on any of those guys. But that is why he took on Michael Bisping at the most calculated time and reason that he could pick. And this is the reason why he is the greatest of all time. Not because you can beat anybody at any given time. You got to remember, as human beings, we're all made out of flesh, bone, and blood. We can be hurt. We can be killed. We can be destroyed. And we can be injured at any given time. No matter how strong we are, no matter how hard we train. But that is why it is important for you to pick your battles, not just in the cage, but also in life. And I think that is the best way to end this stream. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Inshallah. And we are out. See you soon. Reporting from beautiful Sunnyside, California. Obviously, it is 8 o'clock right now. But yes, beautiful California nonetheless. Thank you for joining me tonight. And yes, cheers, Knowles. And everyone else around the world. Thank you. I'll see you guys soon. I'll be dropping another video. The next video I'm going to drop is going to consist of talking about why the UFC is so adamant in seeing John Jones fight Stipe Miocic, even though there is no interest behind it. A lot of it, by the way, deals with this particular subject that we are talking about with GSP. Now, what did GSP do when he beat Johnny Hendricks, his last 170 fight? He left. Now, what did he do after he choked out Michael Bisping? He left and left the belt vacant, because that's why you remember at the time, Israel Adesanya was the interim champion for a minute until he was crowned the undisputed right after GSP had just decided he was going to release the belts. So guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you guys just joined us right now, don't forget to watch from the very beginning all the way till the end. Watch this while you guys are at work. Watch this while you guys are driving in the highway, in the freeway, in the motorway, or whatever highway or whatever road system you live at in the part of the world that you're going from one place to another. Or whether you're just listening to this while you are working at a warehouse or driving a forklift or working at a hospital or working as a security. No matter what it is that you do, thank you for letting me be a part of your life and joining in with my content. And I hope that you guys like and subscribe and share. Don't forget to tell a friend to tell a friend. And inshallah, I will see you guys soon. Enjoy the fights.